the twin sons of Karl, beat down mercilessly upon the elite trials arena, their combined heat creating shimmering waves across the engineered landscape. Lieutenant Aaron Hale squinted against the harsh light, his military-issue sunshield struggling against the dual stellar assault. Around him, dozens of alien competitors stretched, their diverse physiologies bending in ways that sometimes fascinated, sometimes disturbed him. Aaron was the only human in sight. He adjusted the compression brace around his left leg, wincing as his fingers brushed against the tender muscle beneath. 6 months since the plasma round had torn through his thigh during the Vega border skirmish, and still the wound refused to fully heal. The doctors had warned him, neural regeneration took time, especially after battlefield trauma. But time was the one luxury he couldn't afford, not when humanity's reputation hung in the balance. First human to qualify for the elite trials in 17 years. Commander Walsh had reminded him during their last transmission. The diplomatic corps believes your participation alone will open doors. No one expects you to win, Lieutenant. No one expects you to win. The words had stung worse than the injury itself. Aaron checked his competition gear one final time. The lightweight exoframe supporting his damaged leg wasn't technically illegal. He'd verified that with the Karuli Council, but he could feel the disapproving stares from the gathered aliens. Their whispers carried on the hot, dry air. The human brings machinery to compensate for weakness. Typical, their bodies break so easily. They sent a damaged specimen as their representative? Aaron pretended not to hear, though his translator implant caught every word. He focused instead on the course ahead. 5 grueling trials designed to test strength, endurance, adaptability, and teamwork. The arena had been modified to accommodate all 17 participating species, with oxygen-rich air bubbles for the methane breathers and gravity adjustments for the high-G natives. An enormous holographic display hovered above the arena, showing the competitors' names, species, and ranks. The stands surrounding the complex were packed with thousands of alien spectators, many seeing a human up close for the first time. Earth had only joined the Galactic Concord 15 years ago, newcomers by cosmic standards. A sharp tone signaled the competitors to gather at the starting line. Aaron limped forward, trying to disguise the hitch in his stride. He took his position between a towering Zorvak, a reptilian bipedal with iridescent scales and formidable speed, and a willowy Ildurian whose translucent skin revealed the pulsing organs beneath. The Zorvak glanced down at him, vertical pupils narrowing. "You dishonor this gathering, human. The elite trials are not for the crippled." Aaron met the alien's gaze evenly. "I qualified just like you did." "A political gesture." The Zorvak's forked tongue flicked dismissively. "Everyone knows humans are here as a diplomatic courtesy." Before Aaron could respond, the arena's central pylon erupted with light, and a deep, resonant voice boomed across the field. "Welcome, champions, to the 93rd Concord Elite Trials." The announcer, a Karuli elder with ceremonial facial ridges, gestured dramatically toward the competitors. "Today, 17 species will test their mettle in 5 trials of ultimate challenge. Only the elite of the elite shall triumph." The crowd roared its approval as holographic displays illustrated each upcoming trial. The endurance run across shifting acid sands, the zero-G obstacle course, the psychic maze, the strength chamber, and finally, the team relay. First challenge, the endurance run. Competitors, prepare yourselves. Aaron rolled his shoulders, feeling a bead of sweat trickle down his spine. This was what he'd trained for during the 6 painful months of rehabilitation. This was his chance to prove that humans belonged among the stars, not just as diplomatic curiosities, but as equals. The starting signal blared, and the competitors surged forward. Aaron pushed off with his good leg, finding his rhythm despite the pain that immediately flared in his damaged thigh. The specially designed course transformed before them. Ordinary sand, shifting into a caustic, bubbling terrain that required precise footwork and perfect balance. The lead pack quickly pulled ahead, the Zorvak, as expected, taking an early advantage with its powerful hind legs. Aaron settled into the middle of the pack, focusing on maintaining a steady pace rather than burning his energy too quickly. Each step sent a sharp reminder through his injured leg, but he'd grown accustomed to the pain, almost befriending it over the months of recovery. As they rounded the first kilometer marker, disaster struck. A pocket of particularly volatile acid sand erupted beneath Aaron's damaged leg, throwing him off balance. He stumbled, then fell hard, rolling to protect his injury, but losing precious seconds. As he struggled to rise, his leg buckled beneath him, the exoframe whirring in protest as it recalibrated. Laughter rippled through the crowd as Aaron limped forward, now clearly at the back of the pack. He heard the mockery in multiple languages, his translator struggling to keep up with the various insults and jeers. "Look at it drag itself forward. Perhaps it will cry fluid from its eyes, as humans do. Should we stop the competition for the wounded creature?" Aaron gritted his teeth, focusing on the horizon, one foot in front of the other. Ignore the pain. Ignore the mockery. Just keep moving. By the time he crossed the finish line, he was more than 10 minutes behind the leader, the Zorvak, who stood triumphantly receiving accolades from the crowd. Aaron's uniform was soaked with sweat. His breathing labored, his injured leg trembling with exhaustion. "A disappointing showing from Earth's representative," the announcer declared, not bothering to hide the disdain in his voice. "One wonders why humans would send a damaged specimen to compete among the galaxy's finest." Aaron limped to the recovery area, where medics of various species attended to the competitors. None approached him. He sank onto a bench, reaching for his water container with shaking hands. "You should withdraw," a voice said beside him. Aaron looked up to see a slender alien with delicate, feathery appendages and luminous eyes. A Nira, if he remembered correctly from his briefings. Her species was known for their exceptional psionic abilities. "I'm not withdrawing," Aaron replied, taking a long drink. The Nira tilted her head. "Your physical form is compromised. You have no chance of placing in the top rankings. Continuing will only bring you pain and humiliation." Aaron recapped his water. "Thanks for your concern, but I didn't come here to win." "Then why compete at all?" The genuine confusion in her voice caught him by surprise. He considered his answer carefully. "To finish. Sometimes. That's enough." The Nira stared at him for a long moment, her luminous eyes unblinking. "Illogical," she finally pronounced, before gliding away to rejoin her kind. Aaron used the brief respite to adjust his exoframe, wincing as he massaged the aching muscle beneath. The second trial would begin in 30 minutes. The 0G obstacle course, a challenge that would at least reduce the strain on his injured leg. As he worked, he noticed the Zorvak champion speaking with a small cluster of officials, occasionally glancing in his direction. Their conversation seemed heated, with the reptilian gesturing emphatically toward Aaron. A moment later, a Karuli official approached him, mandibles clicking in what Aaron had learned was an expression of discomfort or distaste. "Lieutenant Hale," the official began formally. "Several competitors have raised concerns about your physical condition. They suggest your participation may undermine the prestige of the elite trials." Aaron straightened, meeting the official's compound eyes. "I qualified fairly under Concord regulations. Unless you're officially disqualifying me, I'll be competing in the next trial." The official's mandibles clicked rapidly. "We are not disqualifying you. However, we wish to make clear that no accommodations will be made for your injury. You will receive no special treatment." "I've never asked for any," Aaron replied evenly. The official departed with a final disapproving click, leaving Aaron alone once more. He returned to preparing for the next challenge, aware of the whispers and stares from both competitors and spectators. Let them talk. Let them mock. He had a job to do. The zero-G obstacle course took place in a massive enclosed dome, where gravity could be selectively manipulated. Competitors would navigate a complex three-dimensional maze of barriers, traps, and challenges while dealing with constantly shifting gravitational fields. As the competitors filed into the dome, Aaron noticed a subtle shift in how the others regarded him, where before there had been dismissal or disdain. Now there was curiosity, as if they were waiting to witness a spectacular failure. The pressure weighed on him more heavily than any gravitational field could. The course began with a sudden drop in gravity, and the competitors pushed off from the starting platform, soaring into the three-dimensional maze. Aaron's military training had included extensive zero-G operations, and here, his injured leg posed less of a disadvantage. He navigated the initial obstacles with practiced efficiency, using minimal energy to adjust his trajectory with precise hand and arm movements. Halfway through the course, he found himself neck and neck with a stocky, four-armed alien whose species he didn't immediately recognize. The alien gave him a surprised look as they maneuvered around a spinning barrier. "You move well in void space for a cripple," the alien said in heavily accented common. "Thanks," Aaron replied dryly, using a passing handhold to slingshot himself forward. The alien matched his movement. "I am Pylon of the Gravitide Collective. We evolved in variable gravity environments." "Aaron Hale, Earth." "I know what you are, human. Your kind is soft, fragile, yet you continue despite your broken limb. Why?" Aaron didn't answer immediately, focusing on navigating a particularly tricky sequence of moving platforms. "Because giving up would prove everyone right about humans," he finally said. Pylon considered this as they both paused at a checkpoint. "An interesting perspective. Still, you cannot win." "Winning and succeeding aren't always the same thing," Aaron replied, before pushing off toward the next challenge. He finished the zero-G course in the middle of the pack, a vast improvement over his performance in the endurance run. As artificial gravity was restored and the competitors returned to solid ground, Aaron felt a small measure of satisfaction. His injured leg throbbed dully, but the pain was manageable after the respite from weight-bearing activity. The Zorvak champion, who had placed fourth in this trial, stalked past him with a hiss of displeasure. "Enjoy your small victory, human. The psychic maze will break your primitive mind." Aaron didn't bother responding. He'd studied the elite trials extensively during his preparation and knew the psychic maze was designed to test mental resilience rather than physical prowess. Each competitor would face individualized challenges based on their own fears, weaknesses, and psychological makeup. The trial took place in a field of psionic amplifiers, technology developed by the NERA and adapted for multi-species use. As Aaron took his position on one of the entry platforms, he saw the NERA competitor who had spoken to him earlier. She was adjusting a set of delicate crystalline devices around her head, enhancing her natural abilities for the challenge ahead. She caught his gaze and approached, her movements liquid and graceful. "Human, you surprised many with your performance in the void space. Not too shabby for a cripple, right?" Aaron couldn't keep the edge from his voice. The NERA's expression remained neutral. "I have been tasked with monitoring your psionic defenses during the maze. Your species has limited natural barriers against psychic intrusion." Aaron frowned. "I wasn't told about any monitoring." "It is for your protection. Some minds break in the maze." She tilted her head, studying him with those unsettling luminous eyes. "Yours already carries damage. Here." She gestured toward his leg. "And here." Her delicate appendage hovered near his temple. Before Aaron could respond, the signal for the third trial sounded, and competitors stepped onto their platforms. The world around him shimmered and dissolved, replaced by swirling mists that gradually coalesced into a new reality, one pulled from the darkest corners of his own mind. He found himself back on the battlefield of Vega, the sounds of plasma fire and screams filling his ears. The acrid smell of burned flesh and ozone stung his nostrils. All around him, soldiers fell, human and alien alike, victims of a border dispute that had escalated beyond anyone's expectations. "It's not real," Aaron muttered to himself, forcing his feet to move forward through the illusory carnage. Focus on the objective. The objective of the psychic maze was deceptively simple. Reach the center and retrieve a token, then find the exit. The difficulty lay in maintaining one's grip on reality, while the maze twisted one's perceptions and exploited one's fears. As Aaron pushed forward, the illusion shifted. The battlefield faded, replaced by a hospital recovery room, the same room where he'd spent weeks after his injury, watching his muscles atrophy and wondering if he'd ever walk normally again. The same room where Commander Walsh had visited, offering him this opportunity that felt more like a final chance to prove his worth. "You're failing your species, Lieutenant," an illusory Walsh said from the bedside chair. "Humans are already seen as the weakest link in the conquered. Your pathetic performance only confirms their prejudice." "Not real," Aaron growled, limping past the apparition. The pain in his leg felt amplified within the maze, each step a fiery reminder of his limitations. The room dissolved again, transforming into the elite trials arena. But empty now, abandoned. In this vision, Aaron saw himself collapse during the final trial, unable to continue. He watched the other competitors walk past his fallen form without a second glance. Watched the human diplomatic team turn away in embarrassment. Watched as years of careful relationship building between Earth and the Concord crumbled because of his failure. "Enough!" Aaron shouted, his voice echoing in the psychic construct. "Show me the real challenge!" As if responding to his demand, the illusion wavered, and suddenly he stood before a chasm. On the other side, a small pedestal held the token he needed to retrieve. The gap was wide, too wide for a standing jump, especially with his injured leg. Below, an abyss of swirling darkness promised oblivion for any who fell. Aaron studied the challenge, looking for hidden options or alternative paths. Finding none, he backed up several paces, giving himself room for a running start. His leg protested at the very thought, but he had no choice. He took a deep breath, then sprinted forward, ignoring the searing pain that shot through his damaged thigh. At the edge of the chasm, he launched himself with all the strength he could muster, arms outstretched toward the opposite side. For a breathless moment, he hung suspended over the void. Then, gravity reasserted itself, and he began to fall short of his target. His hands clawed desperately at the edge of the far side, fingers finding purchase on the rough stone. He dangled there, legs swinging free over the abyss, the muscles in his arms straining as he fought to pull himself up. With a guttural cry of effort, Aaron heaved himself onto solid ground, rolling onto his back and gasping for breath. After a moment, he dragged himself to the pedestal and claimed the token, a small, crystalline object that pulsed with inner light. The moment his fingers closed around it, the illusory world dissolved, and he found himself back in the real arena, token in hand. Around him, other competitors were emerging from their own psychic trials, some looking shaken, others triumphant. The Nira approached him, her luminous eyes wide with what might have been surprise. "You completed the maze." Aaron nodded, still catching his breath. "Wasn't so bad." "You lie," she said simply. "I monitored your experience. Your pain was significant." He shrugged. "Pain is just information. Sometimes you can choose to ignore it." The Nira studied him with newfound interest. "Perhaps humans possess strengths that are not immediately apparent." Before Aaron could respond, the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "The psychic maze is complete. Prepare for the fourth trial, the strength chamber." Aaron's heart sank. The strength chamber was precisely what it sounded like. A direct test of physical power, against increasingly difficult challenges. With his injured leg, it would be his greatest struggle yet. The fourth trial took place in a massive circular chamber ringed with various strength testing apparatuses, each calibrated to adjust to the natural capabilities of different species. Competitors would rotate through stations, earning points based on their performance relative to their species baseline. As Aaron entered the chamber, he felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him. The spectators had grown more attentive to his performance, perhaps intrigued by his unexpected survival through 3 trials. He could sense their anticipation. Would the damaged human finally break? The first station involved a simple lifting challenge, a weighted bar that increased its mass incrementally until the competitor could no longer raise it. Aaron positioned himself carefully, making sure to distribute his weight to minimize strain on his injured leg. He gripped the bar, took a breath, and lifted. The bar rose smoothly at first, its weight modest. Then it began to increase, growing heavier with each passing second. Aaron's muscles strained, his damaged leg trembling as it bore its share of the burden. When the weight reached 150% of his body mass, his leg finally gave out. He managed to rack the bar safely before collapsing to one knee, breathing heavily. The crowd murmured, some in disappointment, others in surprise that he'd managed as much as he had. Aaron rose unsteadily, moving to the next station where Pilon was completing a grip strength test with his 4 powerful arms. Human, Pilon acknowledged as they passed. You continue to persist despite overwhelming evidence that you should withdraw. Stubborn, that's us, Aaron replied with a tight smile. Pilon's mouth parts arranged themselves in what might have been respect. Indeed, it is, not without merit. The remaining stations proved equally challenging for Aaron, his injury preventing him from performing at even his diminished best. By the end of the strength chamber trial, he had scored the lowest of all competitors, a fact the announcer took particular pleasure in highlighting. The human representative continues to demonstrate the limitations of his species, the Karuli elder proclaimed. One wonders what purpose is served by this display of inferiority. Aaron limped from the chamber, fatigue etching deep lines in his face. 4 trials completed. 1 remaining, the team relay. Unlike the previous challenges, this one would require coordination with other competitors, randomly assigned to create balanced teams. As he entered the preparation area, a tournament official approached with his team assignment. Aaron checked the display and felt a knot form in his stomach. He'd been placed on a team with the Zorvak champion who had mocked him, the Nira who had monitored his psychic trial, and Pilon of the Gravitide Collective. The Zorvak was already protesting to officials, his scaled hide flushing with anger. This is unacceptable. The human will drag our team down. Reassign us immediately. The official's mandibles clicked in apology. The assignments are final and generated by algorithm to ensure balance. You will compete as assigned. The Zorvak turned his rage toward Aaron. If you had any honor, you would withdraw from this final trial. You can barely walk. Aaron met the reptilian's gaze steadily. I qualified for these trials just like you did. I've completed every challenge so far. I'm not withdrawing. Then you doom us all to failure, the Zorvak hissed, stalking away. Pilon approached, his forearms crossed in a gesture of contemplation. The Zorvak's anger is not entirely misplaced. Human. The team relay requires perfect coordination and matched capabilities. Your injury places our team at a significant disadvantage. I'll pull my weight, Aaron promised. That is precisely what concerns us, the Nira said, gliding forward to join the conversation. Your weight includes a damaged limb that has consistently impaired your performance. Aaron looked between his reluctant teammates. Look, I understand your concerns, but I've come this far, and I'm not quitting now. We can strategize, play to our strengths, and minimize our weaknesses. The 3 aliens exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, Pilon spoke. Very well, human. What do you propose? The team relay was the most complex of all the trials. Each team would traverse a course that combined elements from all previous challenges: endurance running, zero-G navigation, psychic barriers, and strength obstacles. Team members would be connected by energy tethers, requiring them to maintain proximity and coordinate their movements. As Aron's team took their position at the starting line, he could feel the tension radiating from his teammates. The Zorvak had barely spoken during their strategy session, grudgingly accepting the role they'd assigned him as lead runner for the initial endurance segment. "Remember," Aron said quietly to his team, "we stay together. No one pushes ahead. No one gets left behind." The Nira's luminous eyes fixed on him. "Your sentiment is admirable, human, but unrealistic given your condition." Before Aron could respond, the starting signal blared, and the team surged forward. The Zorvak took the lead as planned, his powerful legs eating up the distance. The energy tethers connecting the team members glowed blue as they stretched to their maximum allowed separation. "Pace yourself!" Aron called out, already feeling the strain in his damaged leg as he struggled to keep up. "We have to stay connected." The Zorvak either didn't hear or chose to ignore him, pushing ahead at a punishing speed. Pilon and the Nira kept pace, their physiologies better suited to the rapid advance. Aron found himself being literally dragged along by the energy tether, his injured leg screaming in protest. As they approached the first transition point, where the course changed from the acid sands to the zero-G chamber, disaster struck. Aron's leg buckled completely, sending him sprawling face first into the caustic terrain. The energy tether went taut, then red, signaling a critical distance breach. The Zorvak whirled around, fury evident in his posture. "Get up, human! You're failing us!" Aron tried to rise, but his leg wouldn't support his weight. The exoframe had absorbed a direct hit from a particularly volatile acid bubble and was malfunctioning, its servos whining in distress. "I can't," he began, then cut himself off. No excuses. He'd promised to finish, and finish he would. Using his arms for leverage, he began to drag himself forward. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Laughter mixed with jeers as they watched the human crawling through the acid sands, while his teammates stood waiting in frustration. "This is pointless," the Zorvak spat. "We should disconnect him and continue as three. The rules forbid disconnection, except in case of competitor death." The Nira reminded him. "We must find another solution." Pylon studied Aron's determined crawl with his multiple eyes. "The human refuses to yield despite clear defeat. It is puzzling." As the other teams passed them by, Aron finally reached his teammates, breathing heavily from the exertion. "I can still do this," he gasped. "Help me up." After a moment's hesitation, Pilon extended two of his forearms, lifting Aron to his feet. The human swayed unsteadily, unable to put weight on his damaged leg. "The relay requires all team members to cross each checkpoint," the Nira observed. "But the rules do not specify how we must cross." A look of understanding passed between them. Without further discussion, Pilon positioned himself on Aron's right side, supporting him with two arms, while keeping his other two free for the obstacles ahead. The Zorvak reluctantly took up position as their vanguard, clearing a path through the remaining acid sands. The Nira moved to Aron's left, her psionic abilities already probing ahead for the psychic barriers they would soon face. As a unit, they began to move forward again, slower than before, but with purpose and coordination. The crowd's mockery gradually shifted to murmurs of surprise as the unlikely team found their rhythm. They reached the zero-G chamber, well behind the leading teams but still in the competition. Here, Aron's military training once again proved valuable as he directed their movements through the three-dimensional obstacles with precision, despite his injury. "Left vector, 30 degrees, he called out, and his teammates adjusted accordingly, narrowly avoiding a spinning barrier. "Pylon, power boost in 3, 2, 1. The four-armed alien used his strength to launch them forward as a group, the energy tethers keeping them in perfect formation as they soared through the chamber. Even the Zorvak seemed impressed by Aaron's spatial awareness and tactical thinking. "You navigate void space well for a surface dweller," the reptilian admitted grudgingly. "Thanks," Aaron replied, focusing on the next obstacle. "Nira, psychic barrier at 2 o'clock. Can you clear a path?" The Nira's crystalline enhancements glowed as she directed her abilities toward the shimmering barrier. "Path created. Proceed quickly before it reseals." They passed through the gap in the barrier just as it began to close, the energy tethers stretching to their limit before snapping back as they regrouped on the other side. Their teamwork improved with each obstacle, each member contributing their unique strengths to compensate for the other's weaknesses. Aaron's injury remained a liability, but his tactical mind and zero-G expertise proved increasingly valuable. As they approached the final segment of the course, the strength challenge, Aaron knew they faced their greatest test. This portion required all team members to collectively lift and transport a massive object across a series of elevated platforms. With his injured leg, he could contribute only minimal force. "I'll slow us down here," he admitted to his team as they paused at the transition point. "My leg can't support the weight." The Zorvak hissed in frustration. "Then what use are you to us, human?" "Strategy," Aaron replied simply. "Look at the platforms. They're unevenly spaced and at different heights. We need to plan our path carefully." Pylon studied the challenge ahead. "The human is correct. Brute strength alone will not suffice. We must be precise in our movements." Under Aaron's direction, they plotted a course that minimized the distance they would need to carry the weighted object. The Zorvak and Pylon took the majority of the physical burden, while the Nira used her psionic abilities to stabilize the object as they moved. Aaron kept his weight off his injured leg, using his arms to help guide and balance their precious cargo. Their progress was slow, but steady, each movement carefully calculated to conserve energy and maintain stability. Other teams rushed ahead with greater speed, but less precision, some faltering when they encountered unexpected shifts in the platforms. They were approaching the final platform when disaster struck again. The Zorvak, overextending to reach the next level, lost his footing. The sudden shift in weight pulled Pylon off balance, and the Nira's concentration broke as she was jerked sideways by the energy tether. In an instant, all three aliens were down, the weighted object teetering on the edge of the platform. Aaron lunged forward, ignoring the white-hot pain that shot through his leg as he put weight on it. He caught the edge of the weighted object just before it fell, the muscles in his arms straining with the effort of holding it in place. "Get up!" he shouted to his teammates. "I can't hold this alone!" The three aliens scrambled to recover, but the platform had become slick with a viscous liquid that had sprayed from a hidden nozzle when they fell, an additional challenge designed to test adaptability in crisis. Aaron's strength was failing rapidly, his injured leg trembling violently as it bore weight it was never meant to support. In a moment of clarity, he realized what he had to do. "Grab onto the tethers," he ordered, his voice strained with effort. "All of you, grab on now!" Confused, but seeing no alternative, his teammates gripped the energy tethers connecting them to Aaron. With his remaining strength, he heaved the weighted object onto the final platform, then collapsed to his knees. "What now, human?" the Zorvak demanded. "We're stuck on this platform with no way forward." Aaron didn't answer with words. Instead, he began to crawl toward the final checkpoint, dragging himself forward inch by painful inch. As he moved, the energy tethers went taut, and his three teammates found themselves being pulled along behind him, the slick surface offering no purchase for them to resist. The crowd fell silent as they witnessed the extraordinary spectacle. A damaged human dragging three elite alien competitors across the finish line by sheer force of will. When they finally crossed the checkpoint, Aaron collapsed in exhaustion, his body spent beyond its limits. The arena was utterly still for a long moment, thousands of spectators processing what they had just witnessed. Then, from somewhere in the stands, a single pair of hands began to clap. Another joined, then another, until a thunderous applause filled the arena. It wasn't the mocking laughter of before, but genuine appreciation, respect earned through determination and courage. The Zorvak stood over Aaron's prone form, his scaled features unreadable. Then, to everyone's astonishment, he extended a clawed hand to the human. "You have shown us what it truly means to be elite, Lieutenant Hale," the reptilian said, loudly enough for nearby spectators to hear. "Not perfect physiology or natural advantage, but the will to continue when all reason says to surrender." Aaron took the offered hand, allowing the Zorvak to pull him to his feet. Pilon stepped forward to support him on one side, the Nira on the other. "The elite of the elite," Pilon said, his multiple eyes blinking in what might have been emotion, "is one who elevates those around him." The Nira's luminous eyes seemed to glow brighter as she added, "You carried us, human, not just physically at the end, but throughout the trial. Your mind found the path when our bodies could not." The announcer's voice broke through the moment, sounding distinctly uncomfortable. "The final team has completed the course. Officials are reviewing the results for validation." As medical staff approached to tend to Aaron's injury, he caught sight of the human diplomatic contingent in a special box near the top of the arena. Their expressions showed amazement, pride, and in the case of Commander Walsh, a hint of sheepishness. "No one expects you to win." The words echoed in his mind once more, but this time without the sting of before. Because he hadn't won, at least not in the conventional sense. His team had finished last in the final standings, but he had accomplished something far more valuable than a mere victory. The Karuli Council convened on the central platform, their mandibles clicking rapidly in what appeared to be heated debate. Finally, the head elder stepped forward to address the crowd. "The elite trials have concluded," the elder announced, compound eyes sweeping the arena. "In accordance with tradition, we honor those who have demonstrated exceptional ability." Awards were presented to the top-scoring competitors. With polite applause from the crowd, when the formal ceremony concluded, the head elder paused, mandibles working uncertainly. "There is one additional recognition to be made," the elder said, gesturing toward Aaron and his teammates. "The council acknowledges that true elite status is measured not only in physical prowess, but in qualities that transcend species and circumstance. Lieutenant Aaron Hale of Earth has demonstrated such qualities today." A murmur ran through the crowd as the elder continued. "Therefore, by unanimous decision of the council, and with the endorsement of his fellow competitors, Lieutenant Hale is granted the status of honorary champion of the 93rd Concord Elite Trials." The arena erupted in applause once more, louder than before. Aaron stood speechless, supported by Pilon and the Nira, as the Zorvak stepped forward to accept the ceremonial emblem on his behalf. "I misjudged you, human," the Zorvak said quietly, as he placed the emblem in Aaron's hand. "We all did. Your weakness was never in your damaged leg, but in how we perceived it." Aaron closed his fingers around the emblem, feeling its weight, the weight of expectations overcome, of prejudice confronted, of respect earned. "I didn't come here to win," he said, repeating what he had told the Nira after the first trial. "I came to finish." "And in doing so," the Nira replied, "you have started something new." As they stood together on the platform, human, Zorvak, Nira, and Pilon, Aaron realized the truth of her words. This wasn't an ending, but a beginning. A small step toward true understanding between species that saw the universe through vastly different eyes, but could learn to recognize the same courage in each other's hearts. The twin sons of Karl began their descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the arena. For the first time since arriving on this harsh desert world, Aaron felt a sense of belonging, not because he had proven himself equal to the alien elites in physical prowess, but because he had shown them a different kind of strength altogether. A strength that came not from perfection, but from perseverance, not from superiority, but from solidarity, not from dominance, but from the determination to continue when all reason said to stop. As the crowds began to disperse and the competitors prepared to depart, Aaron looked down at his injured leg, the weakness that had almost kept him from coming, the liability that had become the catalyst for transformation. He would always carry the scar, a permanent reminder of his vulnerability. But now, it would also remind him of this day, when a limping human had finished the course by dragging 3 elite aliens behind him, and in doing so, had taken the first true steps toward a future where strength was measured not by what one could do alone, but by what could be accomplished together. The days following the elite trials passed in a blur for Aaron. His injury, aggravated by the extreme exertion of the competition, required medical attention. To his surprise, he found himself being treated not just by human doctors from the diplomatic contingent, but by specialists from various species, each offering unique insights and treatments. "Your leg will never be the same." Dr. Alara Jensen, the human chief medical officer, told him frankly as she examined the latest scans. "You pushed it far beyond reasonable limits during those trials." "Worth it," Aaron replied, watching as a Moravian healer applied a regenerative compound to his thigh. Dr. Jensen shook her head, though a smile played at the corners of her mouth. "From a medical perspective, I should reprimand you for such recklessness. From a diplomatic one." She glanced at a nearby screen, showing news coverage of the elite trials. "Well, let's just say you've accomplished more for human-alien relations in one day than most diplomats manage in years." The coverage had spread throughout the Concord, faster than FTL communications could carry it. The image of a wounded human, dragging 3 elite alien competitors across the finish line, had captured the imagination of countless species. For many, it was their first glimpse of human determination, what Commander Walsh had later described, with grudging admiration, as humanity's stubborn refusal to accept limitations. On the 3rd day of his recovery, Aaron received unexpected visitors. The Zorvak, the Nira, and Pilon entered his medical suite together, an unusual sight, given the typical segregation of species in Karuli society. "We come to bid you farewell, Lieutenant Hale," the Zorvak said formally, "and to offer our gratitude." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Gratitude? I finished us in last place." The Zorvak's scales rippled in what Aaron had learned was a gesture of amusement. "Placings are temporary. Lessons endure. You have taught us something valuable about unity and perseverance." "I have been selected to join the Concord Diplomatic Corps," the Nira added, her luminous eyes bright with excitement. "Your demonstration of interspecies cooperation has created new opportunities for those of us who wish to build bridges rather than maintain barriers." Pylon stepped forward, extending all 4 arms in a formal greeting. "The Gravitide Collective has extended an invitation for Earth to send representatives to our home system. We believe there is much our peoples can learn from each other." Aaron sat up straighter in his medical bed, ignoring the twinge from his injured leg. That's incredible. The Diplomatic Corps has been trying to establish direct relations with the Gravitide for years." "Yes," Pilon agreed, his multiple eyes blinking rapidly. "We were hesitant. Your species is young, physically fragile by our standards. We questioned what humans could contribute to such an alliance." "And now," Aaron asked, "now, we understand that physical capability is but one measure of strength." Pilon replied, "The determination you displayed, what you call heart, is a resource as valuable as any technological advancement or natural adaptation." The Zorvak, who had introduced himself properly as Zorvak of the Crimson Scale clan, moved closer to Aaron's bedside. I owe you a personal debt, human. My arrogance nearly cost my team everything. In my culture, we have a saying: true victory lies not in never falling, but in rising each time you fall. We have a similar saying on Earth, Aaron said with a smile. Perhaps our peoples are not so different after all, Zorvak mused. I have requested reassignment to the security detail for the Earth Embassy on Karl. If approved, I hope to learn more about your species. The Nira, who called herself Niraval, tilted her head in that curious way of hers. Your injury, it troubles you still. It wasn't a question, but Aaron answered anyway. It always will. Some damage can't be fully repaired. Yet you continue, she observed. You adapt and find new paths forward. This resilience fascinates me. It's just human nature, Aaron replied with a shrug. We're pretty good at making the best of bad situations. A valuable trait in an unpredictable universe, Pilon noted. The Gravitide Collective will be interested in studying this adaptability further. As the conversation continued, Aaron realized how much had changed in just a few days. These aliens who had once mocked or dismissed him now sought his insight, valued his friendship, and recognized what humanity could bring to the galactic community. Not despite his injury, but in part because of how he had refused to let it define or limit him. Commander Walsh arrived as his alien visitors were preparing to depart, looking somewhat bemused by the gathering. After formal farewells were exchanged, he took a seat beside Aaron's bed. Quite the fan club you've developed, Lieutenant, Walsh remarked dryly. I've received 17. Yes, exactly 17. Formal requests from various species for expanded diplomatic relations with Earth. Aaron grinned. Mission accomplished then, sir. Walsh shook his head, but couldn't hide his own smile. When I sent you to these trials, I thought we'd be lucky if you didn't embarrass us completely. I never imagined. He gestured vaguely toward the window, where the sprawling Karuli capital spread out beneath an orange sky. This, whatever this is. A beginning, sir, Aaron replied, thinking of Niraval's words on the podium. Just a beginning. Walsh nodded thoughtfully. The diplomatic corps is already planning next year's participation in the elite trials. They're talking about sending a full human team this time. Good luck finding volunteers, Aaron said with a chuckle. Those trials are brutal. Actually, Walsh said, sliding a data tablet across to him. We've been inundated with applications since your performance aired. Seems you've inspired quite a few of your fellow officers. Aaron scrolled through the list of names, surprised by the volume and the caliber of the applicants. These are all top-tier personnel, combat veterans, special forces operators. All of them citing your example as their motivation, Walsh confirmed. You've changed the narrative. Hail! Humans aren't just the new kids on the block anymore. We're the species that refuses to quit, even when the odds are stacked against us. As Walsh departed, Aaron lay back in his medical bed, reflecting on the unexpected outcomes of his participation in the elite trials. He had entered the competition carrying the weight of his injury, seeing it as a burden to overcome, a weakness to conceal. Yet in the end, it had become the catalyst for something greater than any conventional victory could have achieved. The next morning, as he prepared for his return journey to Earth, Aaron received one final visitor, the Karuli head elder who had presided over the elite trials. The elder's compound eyes studied him with inscrutable intensity. Lieutenant Hale, the elder began formally, mandibles clicking softly. The Karuli Council wishes to express its reconsideration of certain preconceptions regarding human capabilities. Aaron inclined his head respectfully. I appreciate that, Elder. The trials were an invaluable opportunity for cultural exchange. The Elder's mandibles worked for a moment before he continued. For 93 cycles, the elite trials have celebrated physical and mental superiority. We designed each challenge to test the limits of physiological and psychological excellence. A pause. You have forced us to question whether we have been measuring the wrong qualities all along. Not wrong, Aaron corrected gently. Just incomplete. Excellence takes many forms. Indeed. The elder produced a small, crystalline object, a miniature replica of the honorary champion emblem Aaron had received. This has been added to the permanent records of the elite trials. Future competitors will learn of the human who changed our understanding of what it means to be truly elite. As Aaron accepted the token, the elder added, "Your injury, many among us saw it as disrespectful to our traditions, sending a damaged representative to compete among our finest. We failed to recognize that the damage was not in your limb, but in our perception." "We all have our blind spots," Aaron replied. "The important thing is being willing to see past them when given the chance." The elder's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with something like emotion. "The conquered has existed for millennia. Lieutenant Hale, species join and contribute, but rarely do they change us, humans." The elder's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Humans may prove to be the exception. As his transport prepared for departure later that day, Aaron stood at the viewport, gazing out at the harsh beauty of Carl. The twin suns blazed in the orange sky, casting long shadows across the desert landscape. Below, a gathering had formed, aliens of various species who had come to witness the humans' departure. Among them stood Zorvak, Niraval, and Pilon, their diverse physiologies a striking reminder of the incredible variation life had taken throughout the galaxy. Yet, despite their differences, they had found common ground, not in physical similarity or shared history, but in mutual respect earned through shared struggle. As the transport lifted off, Aaron caught a final glimpse of the elite trials arena in the distance, where his journey had begun and ended. His legs still ached, a constant companion that would remain with him for the rest of his life. But now, as he set course for home, he carried something else as well, the knowledge that sometimes what we perceive as our greatest weakness can become our most powerful strength. Not because the weakness itself is valuable, but because in confronting it, in refusing to be defined by it, we discover depths of resilience and determination we never knew we possessed. And in a universe filled with countless species and civilizations, perhaps that was humanity's unique contribution to the galactic community, not technological innovation or military might, but the simple, stubborn refusal to accept that any limitation was final. The limping human who finished the course dragging 3 elite aliens behind him hadn't just completed a competition. He had taken the first steps toward a new understanding between worlds, proving that true strength wasn't measured by how quickly you could run the race, but by your determination to cross the finish line, no matter what stood in your way. As Earth appeared on the navigation display, a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space, Aaron smiled to himself. He was going home, but he carried with him the beginning of something new, a bridge between species built not on power or perfection, but on the shared experience of overcoming challenges together. And in the end, perhaps that was the greatest victory of all.